Oh, Mom, when I came back from shopping, I saw my daughter Madison crouched at the entrance with a big belly. She looked really tired and her face was thin and pale. Her eyes were a bit unfocused as she looked up at me. Next to her, a little child was holding on tightly to Madison, calling Mom, Mom. I realized this child was my granddaughter, Harper. I brought them both inside and asked what happened. Madison told me that her husband, Stephen, got frustrated because she couldn't move around much during her second pregnancy and had left them in front of the house. Madison was clearly in her last month of pregnancy and needed care. Even though the days were sunny and warm, the wind was cold. I felt so angry, wondering what Stephen would have done if I hadn't been there. I didn't think he was the kind of person to do something like this. Pregnancy isn't an illness, right? We have pregnant women at my work who do their jobs from home just fine. And Harper, she's always crying and so loud. My colleagues' kids never cry like that. When I finally called Stephen, he sighed loudly on purpose. An unemployed, obese woman and a noisy child are a nuisance. Let her parents take care of them for a while. Realizing it was pointless to talk to him, I decided to focus on caring for Madison and Harper instead. Half a year later on a spring afternoon, Stephen called. Hey, what's going on? Your house is gone. At first, I was confused, but then I understood. You finally noticed, I replied. After hearing the truth, he was speechless and turned pale. My name is Scarlett. I'm a 58-year-old housewife. My husband passed away about 3 years ago, leaving me alone, but I don't mind being alone. His study is filled with books, including his favorite novels, challenging research papers, magazine clippings, and diaries. Being in the study makes me feel close to him. Sometimes I spend time there, looking through the books. My daughter Madison, her daughter Harper, and Madison's husband Stephen live about a 30-minute drive away in the next town. Stephen works at a big company owned by his dad. At just 33, he's already a department head and is even considered a potential future CEO. Madison and Stephen met at a beer party when Madison was out with friends. One of her friends recognized an old classmate, who turned out to be Stephen. They discovered they worked near each other and started seeing each other more often, either by bumping into one another or going out for drinks with friends. Eventually, this led to a relationship. Madison wasn't the type to make the first move and often called me, unsure of what to do. I wasn't very experienced in love either, so I tell her, well, I'm not sure either, but maybe just go out for a meal and enjoy yourselves. Unlike me, my husband had experienced many romances before we met. But when it came to our daughter's love life, we both agreed on one thing: she shouldn't date someone strange. My husband, always protective, even joked about calling himself strange. Their relationship continued smoothly, and within a year, they happily announced their engagement. Stephen, with his strong position in his father's company and his impressive sales skills, had earned my husband's trust enough for us to feel comfortable entrusting our daughter to him. Reflecting on this, my husband reassured me, saying, I also felt at ease sending our daughter off to such a respectable person. Shortly after, Madison and Stephen married and moved to the next town to begin their life together. Initially, Madison would visit us often, sharing the excitement of her pregnancy and her worries about childbirth. About 3 or 4 months after Madison shared her pregnancy news, my husband tragically passed away. He was involved in a car accident caused by a truck driver who had fallen asleep at the wheel. Both Madison and I were deeply shaken by the sudden loss. We struggled to maintain our composure as we rushed to arrange the funeral and handle the necessary company and government procedures. The days passed quickly, and before we knew it, a month had already gone by. It's strange that I hadn't seen Stephen much since he first came to introduce himself before the wedding. Even at the funeral, he only stayed for about an hour before leaving abruptly. I found it a bit rude, but Madison explained, that's just how he is. Stephen is always busy with work, she said with a forced smile tinged with sadness. It seemed like she didn't get much chance to talk or spend time with Stephen, who often left early for golf meetings on weekends. Being the son of a company president might excuse his absence somewhat, but I wished he would consider Madison, especially since she was heavily pregnant. As summer drew to a close, Madison returned to our home to give birth. With her belly fully rounded, she was eagerly anticipating meeting her baby. It's a girl. We've already picked a name, she told me. Oh, really? What's her name? I asked. Harper. Stephen and I chose it, Madison replied, smiling warmly. She gave birth within 2 weeks and soon returned home where Stephen was waiting. Madison, make sure to visit us sometimes. Bring Harper too, I urged her. I called Madison again, hoping to reconnect, but her response sounded hesitant. Yeah, maybe once things settle down I'll come over, she replied. Despite my concerns, I hoped it was just a temporary situation. Madison was always busy with childcare and housework, and Stephen, who should have been dependable, often came home late or not until the morning. I wondered aloud, even if he's the president's son, can his job really be that demanding? Despite several attempts to reach out, the pattern remained unchanged. It had been 3 years since Harper was born, yet I had only seen my granddaughter once, right after Madison gave birth. I wanted to support Madison and had expressed this to her many times over the phone, but her responses were always evasive. Before a long weekend, I decided to call Madison again. "Hello, Madison. How have you been? I was thinking of visiting you and Harper soon." I knew I had to be careful not to push too hard. Conversations with friends in the neighborhood had taught me that it's becoming less common for grandparents to see their grandchildren regularly, and pushing too much could strain the relationship further. Madison was my daughter, but I feared this call might lead to rejection, forcing me to accept the situation. With these thoughts, I waited anxiously for Madison's response. "Mom, I haven't been feeling well lately and I need some space. Please don't call me for a while," Madison said over the phone. "Are you okay? If you're not feeling well, I'm really worried. Can I bring over some food?" I asked, concerned. "I don't need it. Can we stop this?" "I'm going to hang up," Madison replied, sounding frustrated. "Wait, how about Harper and Steven? Is he doing well? Has he caught a cold?" I pressed, trying to keep the conversation going. "You're being too nosy, Mom. I want to raise my child on my own, so please stop calling," Madison snapped before hanging up abruptly. Feeling hurt and confused, I paused, unsure of what to do next. The brief call left me deeply shaken. I never expected Madison to feel that way about me. I thought I was showing kindness, but now I realized I had been meddling, and it pained me as I stared at the silent phone. Perhaps she was exhausted and stressed from childcare, or maybe I had crossed a line by interfering too much. Considering different possibilities, I acknowledged there might have been fault on my part and decided to stop calling. Still, I couldn't shake the thought. Had my once open and communicative daughter changed so drastically? Despite my reluctance to give up on seeing my granddaughter, I continued to call about once a month. Each time, I faced a distant reception and was denied access to Harper. "Hey, are you feeling all right?" I'd ask, only to receive no reply or have the call abruptly end. Hoping to get a better sense of what was happening, I decided to call Steven. He was my daughter's husband, and I figured he might have some insight into Madison's and Harper's situation. Steven never answered the phone promptly, but late one night, he returned my call. "Madison? Oh yes, she's fine," Steven assured me. "She's doing a great job looking after Harper. You don't need to worry. Madison has always been very responsible." "That's good to hear. Could you let her know I'd like to see her sometime?" I asked, hopefully. "Yes, of course," Steven replied. "It's odd that Madison isn't picking up her phone lately. That's not like her. It's quite concerning," I added, feeling uneasy about Steven's responses. His words felt rehearsed, as if he was trying to downplay the situation. About a month later, as autumn set in and I returned home from shopping one day, I spotted a figure sitting on my front porch. At first, I thought it might be a homeless person who had mistaken my house for somewhere else. But as I approached, I realized it was Madison. Madison. And look at that belly. And who is this child? I exclaimed in surprise as I saw Madison's noticeably larger belly, indicating she was pregnant again. "Oh, Mom." Madison's face was tired and drawn, her eyes unfocused. The child next to her clung tightly, calling out, "Mom, Mom." I realized it was Harper. I quickly unlocked the door and ushered them inside, practically carrying them to the living room sofa. I made some hot milk for them to drink. Harper cautiously sipped the warm milk. "It's cooled down now, so it's safe," I reassured her. Harper drank, leaving a white ring around her mouth. Turning to Madison, I started asking questions. "What happened? Why were you sitting outside like that? Where's Steven? What's going on with your home?" Madison began to cry and look down for a while before speaking. "Take your time," I comforted her, rubbing her back gently. After a moment, she explained that as her second pregnancy progressed, she found it increasingly difficult to manage household chores and take care of Harper, which frustrated Steven. He had driven them to the front of my house and left them there. Seeing Madison heavily pregnant and upset made me furious, imagining what could have happened if I hadn't been home. I immediately called Steven. He hadn't mentioned anything about Madison's pregnancy during our last conversation, which would have prompted me to offer help sooner. After several rings, he answered with a tired voice. "Hello, Steven. What's this I hear about you leaving Madison and Harper outside my house just now?" I asked, my tone filled with anger and concern. Steven replied casually, "Well, that's how it is. Madison hasn't been keeping up with household duties lately, using her pregnancy as an excuse. Even when I come home tired, there's no dinner ready." I was taken aback by his nonchalant response, feeling a mix of disbelief and disappointment. "Not helping because you think it's all Madison's job? Don't you think you should be supporting your wife?" I challenged Steven, my voice tinged with disbelief. "Why should I help? Household chores are Madison's responsibility. She's the housewife," Steven replied dismissively. I have my own work to focus on. It's only natural she takes care of the house. Madison is pregnant, Stephen. It's not fair to expect her to manage everything alone without any appreciation from you, I countered, trying to reason with him. Pregnancy isn't an illness. Many pregnant women work remotely just fine at our company. And as for Harper, all kids have their moments. Comparing her to someone else's child isn't fair. Stephen sighed dramatically over the phone. An overweight wife and noisy kids are a hassle. Let the parents deal with them for a while. At that moment I realized it was pointless to continue the conversation. Fine by me, I said firmly, hanging up. Stephen's mocking laughter lingered in my ears before the call ended. Suppressing my anger and frustration, I focused on what truly mattered, taking care of Madison and Harper. Harper's clothes were stained with food and juice spills, turning into little spots. Her hair also had a faint smell, so my first priority was giving her a bath. The spare clothes in the carry case were slightly dirty too. We'll need to go shopping for new clothes tomorrow with Grandma, I told her gently. 3-year-old Harper was chatty, talking nonstop about her favorite foods, picture books, and characters from her favorite kids' show. Meanwhile, Madison looked exhausted and worn out from the strain of managing everything on her own. She could barely move from the couch. Quickly, I prepared fresh sheets and set up a bed in an empty room upstairs for Madison to rest. She looked worn out, with rough skin and disheveled hair, which made her look quite pitiful. Call me if you need anything at all. I'll take care of Harper, so you just focus on resting, okay? I assured Madison. She nodded gratefully and soon fell asleep, finally able to relax. The next 1 to 2 weeks were spent nursing Madison back to health and caring for Harper. Spending time with my granddaughter, whom I hadn't seen much until then, was incredibly fulfilling and not at all burdensome. It was difficult for me to resist when Harper would plead, "Please buy it," with that sweet voice of hers. As Madison gradually recovered, she began to open up about her past. Stephen used to be kind before we got married. He respected my opinions and we would discuss everything together. Those were the happiest times. Her voice grew somber. But after we married, he changed. He started giving orders, saying things like, "You can't rely on your parents. You have to manage all the housework perfectly." I just accepted it all. She shared that she was allowed to come back to her parents' house when Harper was born. Looking back, it felt like I was being manipulated, controlled. He even told me once that I shouldn't rely on you, Mom. So is that why you hung up quickly when I called? Yes, calls with you were forbidden too, so I had to hang up quickly. I'm really sorry, Madison explained with a mixture of regret and sadness. Later that night, after Harper had fallen asleep, we sat down with ginger tea and talked. I felt a rush of emotions, anger and sorrow mingling together. Stephen, who had once seemed so respectful when he asked for Madison's hand in marriage, now caused her so much pain and even spoke ill of her as if she were a burden. What's more, there were suspicions of him having an affair. I've noticed perfume on him lately. It's not like him, especially not a woman's scent. And his shirts have had a sweet smell when I've done the laundry, I shared with Madison. His late nights and early mornings suddenly seemed to make sense. Madison, you've been incredibly strong through all of this, managing the house and taking care of Harper, all while dealing with your husband's infidelity, I praised her, overwhelmed with admiration for her resilience despite everything. Despite any disagreements, she's my daughter and family. Madison teared up quietly. The gentle autumn weather persisted, dry yet refreshing compared to summer. Madison's due date was approaching. I focused on pampering both Madison and Harper, nurturing their emotional and physical well-being. 6 months passed and spring arrived. While I was preparing lunch one day, my phone rang unexpectedly. I paused to answer it. The caller was Stephen. "Yes, this is Scarlett," I answered cautiously. "Hey, what's going on? Your house is gone." Stephen's voice sounded bewildered on the other end of the line. "Finally noticed, have you?" I replied, a hint of amusement in my voice. Stephen had arrived to pick up Madison, Harper, and the newborn only to find the house demolished and an empty lot with a "for sale" sign. The move and demolition had been completed a month ago, and Stephen seemed to have just realized the situation, prompting his panicked call to me. "We've moved. You left Madison, Harper, and the baby in my care for half a year. Have you been aware of that?" I questioned pointedly. "Yeah, I've come to pick them up now." "Where are you?" Stephen asked urgently. "Come to pick them up. Unfortunately, we've relocated to a secure apartment. There's no point in telling you where. I'm not considering returning them to you," I responded firmly. "Don't joke with me. I told my parents I'd bring Harper and the baby over. Give me back the kids at least," Stephen insisted, his tone unsettling as he referred to the children almost as possessions. "That's a promise you made on your own. It doesn't concern us, so we won't comply. I'm busy now, so if you don't mind." Just then, the baby started crying, the sound audible through the phone. Stephen seemed to react softly, saying, "Oh." Ignoring him, I hung up and hurried to change the baby's diaper in the next room. I could hear Madison's phone conversation faintly. Yes, hello, what? Her voice carried a hint of frustration, likely arguing with Stephen. Soon after, Harper emerged from her room, looking scared. Mom is angry, she whispered anxiously. It's okay, sweetheart. Everything will be fine, I assured her, pulling her into a comforting hug. About 10 minutes later, the commotion quieted down, and Madison joined us. It was Stephen. He was demanding our new address, but I refused outright. I don't care if he wants to show Harper and the baby to his parents, she sighed, reflecting on his persistence. But maybe it was for the best he called. I finally got to say what I've been wanting to. Regarding the lawyer? The issue at hand was Stephen's infidelity. During that call, I informed him that we would proceed with a divorce through a lawyer, and I would also seek alimony due to his affair. I also sent proof of his infidelity to his father, Madison recounted calmly. Over the past 6 months, we had hired a detective to investigate Stephen's behavior, and the evidence confirmed his unfaithfulness. With 2 young children to consider, Madison couldn't overlook this betrayal. Stephen was caught off guard by Madison's knowledge of his affair and was visibly shaken. He must have been pale with shock when he realized his parents were aware of the evidence. Outraged, he exclaimed, "How could you do this?" But those were my terms, I replied firmly. Given his parents' strict nature, I anticipated they would not take his actions lightly. Madison's prediction proved correct. A meeting was arranged with Stephen's parents to discuss his conduct. During the meeting, they apologized to Madison and accepted the divorce proceedings. Stephen's father, despite his son being a potential future company president, expressed his anger and disappointment, stating that a man who cheats on his wife and neglects his children is unworthy of such responsibilities. As a result, he dismissed Stephen from his position within the company. In the end, Stephen faced serious consequences. He lost his position and gave up custody of his children, allowing Madison and me to raise them. He was required to pay compensation and child support, but struggled due to debts accrued from supporting his affair partner. Although he found another job, the salary was modest, forcing him to move into a small, inexpensive apartment. After losing his shot at becoming president, Stephen's affair partner callously abandoned him. It became clear she was more interested in his title than him as a person. Despite multiple attempts to reconnect and reconcile, Madison cut off contact with Stephen, and their divorce was finalized smoothly. Madison became a single parent, but found strength in raising her children who thrived under her care. Despite the rift, Stephen's father, feeling remorseful, continued to support Harper and her sibling beyond the agreed child support. Despite Madison and my initial refusals, he insisted, and we accepted it for the children's future. We also kept Stephen's parents updated with photos and videos of their grandchildren, and occasionally video called when schedules allowed. Seeing Harper and her sibling grow up brought joy to Stephen's parents, who cherished their role as grandparents deeply. Harper's days at prep school were filled with joy, especially with her mud and sand playtime with friends. One sunny afternoon, I arrived to pick her up and noticed she was clutching a rolled-up piece of drawing paper. "What's that, Harper?" I asked, curiously. She hesitated shyly before replying, "It's a picture of Mom." The preschool teacher had assigned them to draw portraits as gifts for their mothers that day. Although Harper was too bashful to show me the drawing right away, she eagerly rushed home and presented it to Madison. While I couldn't see the portrait myself, Madison was deeply moved and praised Harper's thoughtfulness. It was a touching moment that showcased Harper's growing individuality. Thinking about her future fills me with hope and excitement. Living together as a family of 4, experiencing this happiness, feels like nothing short of a miracle.